CBS News has learned that the Boston Coast Guard is operating a search and rescue mission for a missing submarine.
For 4 days, the world waited. 5 people had disappeared somewhere beneath the North Atlantic, and nobody knew where they were. Their names were everywhere. Their faces were on every news channel. And the same question kept coming up. Were they still alive? Rescue teams were racing against the clock. Ships were searching, aircraft were scanning the ocean, and somewhere, nearly 4,000 meters below the surface, 5 people were believed to be waiting to be found. At least, that's what the world thought, because by the time the search began, the story had already ended. The vessel was called the Titan, and this is the story of how 5 people ended up inside it. Because what happened on June 18, 2023, wasn't just about a machine failing at the bottom of the ocean. It was about ambition. It was about trust. And it was about warnings that came long before anyone started searching for the missing sub. The Titan wasn't like most deep-sea submersibles. And that was exactly the point. OceanGate wanted to do things differently. The company believed deep-sea exploration was too expensive, too slow, and too restricted, so they built something they believed could change the industry. Titan used a carbon fiber composite pressure hull. That was unusual. Most deep-diving submersibles rely heavily on materials and designs that have been tested extensively under extreme pressure. Titan was different. It was experimental. And at the depth of the Titanic wreck, experimental is a dangerous word. Nearly 4,000 meters below the surface, the pressure is enormous. The ocean is pushing against the vessel from every direction. At that depth, there is no room for a small mistake to become a big mistake, because if the pressure hull fails, there is no second chance. And years before the final dive, people inside and outside OceanGate had already raised concerns. A former employee, David Lockridge, questioned aspects of the vessel's design and testing. Industry experts warned that the company was taking risks. In 2018, a group of deep-sea specialists reportedly warned OceanGate that its approach could lead to potentially catastrophic problems. But Titan kept going. The expeditions continued, and the company continued to tell people that the future of deep-sea exploration was being built right in front of them. Then came the 5 people who would take Titan on its final journey. This is the part most videos skip. So let's slow down, because these weren't just 5 names on a news report. They were 5 people with 5 completely different reasons for being there. Stockton Rush was 61. He was the founder and CEO of OceanGate, and on the day of the final dive, he was also the pilot. Rush wasn't someone who believed exploration should be left to governments and giant institutions. He believed private companies could change the way humans explored the ocean. He wanted to make the impossible accessible, and he believed the rules of the industry were holding innovation back. Hamish Harding was 58, a British businessman, an adventurer, someone who had already pushed himself into places most people would never go. He had traveled to the deepest point on Earth. He had even been to space. The Titanic was another extraordinary destination, another story to add to a life built around exploration. Then there was Paul-Henri Nargeolet, 77 years old, a former French naval officer, and one of the world's most experienced Titanic explorers. He had been to the wreck more than 30 times. He wasn't there simply to see the Titanic. He knew the Titanic, and that makes his presence on Titan particularly significant. Because if you were a passenger stepping inside that vessel, and one of the most experienced people in the world was sitting beside you, wouldn't that make you feel safer? And finally, there was Shahzada Dawood, a wealthy Pakistani businessman. He had brought his 19-year-old son, Suleiman. According to the family, Suleiman was nervous about the trip, but he went anyway. It was Father's Day weekend, and he wanted to spend that time with his dad. 5 people, 5 lives, 5 different reasons for being there, and one tiny vessel about to disappear beneath the Atlantic. The dive began on the morning of June 18, 2023. The plan was simple: descend, reach the Titanic, explore the wreck, and come back. But somewhere during that descent, something went wrong. Titan lost contact with the surface. The support ship, the Polar Prince, could no longer communicate with the submersible. At first, nobody knew what that meant. Maybe there was a communications problem. Maybe Titan was experiencing technical difficulties. Maybe it was sitting on the ocean floor. Maybe the people inside were perfectly fine. There was only one problem. Nobody knew. And so, the search began. For 4 days, the world watched. Ships arrived, aircraft searched, robotic vehicles were sent into the depths. News anchors talked about the amount of oxygen remaining inside the vessel. The clock was ticking. Every hour mattered. Families waited for answers, and millions of people around the world watched the same story unfold. 5 people, 1 missing submersible, and a race against time. But there was something nobody knew yet. The 5 people inside Titan weren't waiting to be rescued. They were already dead. On June 22nd, authorities made the announcement.
The search for a missing submersible in the North Atlantic Ocean has ended in the worst-case scenario. The U.S. Coast Guard said last hour that search vehicles found debris from the Titan on the ocean floor near the wreck of the Titanic, and the 5 people that were on board are presumed dead.
Debris had been found near the Titanic wreck. The Titan had suffered a catastrophic implosion. The 5 people on board were dead. The rescue mission was over. But here's the part that makes this story even more haunting. The world had spent 4 days imagining 5 people trapped inside a tiny vessel, waiting for help, running out of oxygen, hoping someone would find them. But that wasn't what happened. The disaster had happened much earlier. The 5 people aboard Titan had died almost instantly. The world just didn't know it yet. And now the question became much bigger than, where is the Titan? The question became, why did this happen at all? Because the Titan didn't suddenly become dangerous on June 18th. The warnings had been there. The concerns had been raised. And the decisions that eventually led 5 people to the bottom of the Atlantic had been made years before. 2 years after the disaster, the U.S. Coast Guard released its investigation into the Titan tragedy.
U.S. Coast Guard investigators have released their report on the June 2023 Titan submersible disaster.
The report says the implosion that killed all 5 people on board was preventable. It also says it was partially the result of a, quote, toxic workplace culture and intimidation tactics at OceanGate, the company that operated the submersible.
Its conclusion was devastating. The disaster was preventable. Investigators pointed to failures in OceanGate's design, testing, maintenance, and safety practices. They found that warning signs had been missed or ignored, and they criticized the company's culture, a culture where, according to investigators, innovation was repeatedly placed ahead of established safety practices. The tragedy wasn't one mistake. It was a chain of decisions. One decision followed another. Until, eventually, 5 people stepped inside Titan, and the ocean made the final decision for them. But here's the question I want you to think about. If the warnings were there, if people had raised concerns, if experts had questioned the vessel, why did anyone still get inside? This is the story of the Titan, the 5 people who trusted it, the man who believed he could change deep-sea exploration, and the warnings that came long before the world began searching for them. If you found this video entertaining, kindly like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Thank you for watching.